There will be spoilers, Ed, for Hang the DJ, and there will be spoilers for Black Mirror seasons 1 through 4. In Hang the DJ, we follow Amy and Frank, who belong to a walled-off society where residents are matched with each other for a set amount of time. The expiration date for each match varies depending on the couple. The system collects data from every relationship so it can ultimately present each resident with the one. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, the show's creator, Charlie Brooker, explained he wanted to make a service that was like a Spotify for dating, claiming it could generate a playlist of relationships. It would tell you who you were going to be going out with next and for how long. The system is learning from your reaction to being paired with all these different types of people. Once it's figured it's learned enough about you, it will then pair you up with the ultimate soulmate. When they first met, Amy and Frank were only given 12 hours together. They spent most of that time laying in bed talking. Amy said how it must have been mental before the system, when people had to work out who they wanted to be with. Frank responded, option paralysis. So many choices, you end up not knowing which one you want. In the book Inside Black Mirror, Georgina Campbell, who plays Amy, claimed, I loved the script, which felt so close to the dating experience so many of us are subject to. Endless dating seems normal these days, with all these apps and virtual ways of meeting people. Further saying, in a way it's fantastic, because you meet so many people and don't perhaps feel a need to settle. But at the same time, option paralysis is definitely real. If you use any of these dating apps, you may overanalyze most of your encounters on them, as you are presented with so many new choices every day. You could be worried about settling down too soon, because you think someone better may come along. So you stop talking to your old matches, and start talking to your new, more exciting matches. Then continue swiping right on, liking, or hearting new people. With an overwhelming amount of choices, there's this fear of picking the wrong person and missing out on the one. In Hang the DJ, the system was made to remove those uncertainties. Amy was paired with Lenny for 9 months and was given meaningless 36-hour flings for the next 3 months. Lenny was a new match that appeared to be the better option. However, Amy found Lenny to be unbearable and couldn't tolerate his small, annoying idiosyncrasies. If you're fond of the one you're dating and it's going well, it's best not to worry about whether or not you're missing out on your soulmate. Usually, what looks like a more desirable option will always be better in your mind than what it is in reality. After every meaningless fling, Amy became further detached. She got to explore a variety of new attractive people, but nothing mattered without a solid emotional connection. Amy and Frank were set up again, and promised each other they would not look at the expiry date, but Frank broke his promise and viewed how much time they had left. This caused a 5-year time limit to be reduced to only 20 hours. In the book Inside Black Mirror, Charlie Brooker commented on this, saying, I always thought that was a neat little analogy for leaving things well alone, versus the human need to know everything, and the insecurity that comes from worrying about how long a relationship will last. Frank ends up punishing both of them. He sours the whole thing by getting insecure. Amy and Frank were told they were going to meet the one, but gave up that opportunity so they could be with each other. They turn against the system and climb the wall, not knowing what's on the other side. Together, they embrace the fact that they don't know the future. When Frank and Amy are climbing the wall, the rest of the world vanishes as they are transported to a room filled with hundreds of copies of themselves. It's revealed that Amy and Frank are copies of the real Amy and Frank, and these copies exist within a dating app. Amy was right when she was making fun of Frank's paranoia by saying they were stuck in a simulation. In the book Inside Black Mirror, Charlie Brooker commented on that line of dialogue, saying, that was me trying to pull a double bluff. Hopefully that worked. On some level, you might go, well, that's not the twist because they've said it, so it won't be. The device referred to as Coach was trying to keep Amy and Frank apart. It intentionally paired them with the wrong people. The system was made to slowly break them down by giving them partner after partner, getting them to the point where they're so defeated and exhausted they settle for who the program claims is the one. The system was testing Amy and Frank on how many times they rebelled against it. By the way, some of you may be asking the question, what happened to to Amy and Frank in the other two simulations? Charlie Brooker answered this question in an interview with Entertainment Weekly. He said, "I would think they would be matched with a random other person and their world would end." There were more hints throughout the episode showing us that Amy and Frank were in a simulation. The layout of their society is designed like the inside of a smartphone. When Amy and Frank are outside of the restaurant, you can see what appears to be a map of the entire community. In the book Inside Black Mirror, the series production designer Joel Collins claimed, "There's a central hub, and all the green grass is the green plate of the chip, and all the huts are the little nubbins." Basically, I thought, if we can't tell the audience we're inside a mobile phone, what happens if I design it like we really are? In the end, the copies of Amy and Frank are absorbed into the big green circle. Before the copies turn into orbs, they break apart into hexagonal patterns. The same patterns can be seen on the walls of the city, behind Edna and Mike on their pairing day, on the walls of the restaurants, and inside of the cabins. Earlier in the episode, Frank mentioned that the system had a 99.8% success rate. In the end, the app displayed a 99.8% match on their smartphones. The number 4 helped Amy realize that she was in a simulation meant to test her and Frank. Amy noticed that every time she skimmed a rock across the water, it would skip 4 times. At exactly 44 minutes and 44 seconds into the 4th episode in the 4th season of Black Mirror, Amy tells Coach to count to 4. Then she throws the device across the water, where it skips 4 times. Also, when Frank revealed he broke their promise, Amy stormed off and we saw this wide shot of Frank. Above him, the ceiling installations in the shape of rings were separated. In the end, when Amy and Frank run away, they pass through the same area and the rings are overlapping. In this shot, the rings look like the symbol we saw outside of the central hub and at Edna and Mike's pairing day. In the end, Frank and Amy match on the dating application and see each other from across the room. The clean, organized virtual world is replaced with a bar, cluttered with people, brands, loud conversations, etc., etc. There's one question I'd like to address. Did Hang the DJ have a happy ending, or an incredibly dark one? Let's take a moment to talk about cookies. Cookies were first introduced to us in Black Mirror Season 2, Episode 4, White Christmas. In White Christmas, we follow Matthew Trent, who works for the company Smartelligence. He explains how a cookie is a device containing a digital copy of someone's consciousness. Smartelligence takes a blank cookie and surgically implants it into the client's brain. They let it sit under the skin for a week, so it can soak up the way that particular mind works. In Hang the DJ, Frank said the system slurps up all your reactions and builds up a complex profile. Every crazy thought you've ever had, all your dreams and your weaknesses. Like everything in your head. With that information, it's safe to assume that the copies of Amy and Frank were cookies. No different from the other cookies we've seen throughout the series. Real-life Amy and Frank must have gone through the same kind of process Greta went through in the episode White Christmas. Maybe in Frank and Amy's world, Smartelligence only needed one cookie, and could use that same code for multiple things like smart homes and dating apps. Let's compare Frank and Amy's cookies to Greta's cookie. For the rest of her existence, Cookie Greta will have to operate Greta's home. To get her to comply, Cookie Greta was put in solitary for 6 months and 3 weeks with nothing to do. For 1 year, Frank was forced to be in a relationship with someone who didn't like jokes. I don't know, you tell me which one is worse. Each system was reliant on torturing these conscious beings to get results. We sympathized with Greta's cookie when she was forced to come to terms with her new life. We only liked Amy and Frank because of their cookies. Then we watched those cookies essentially die when the simulation ended. The versions of Amy and Frank we were rooting for will never have a future together. Fundamentally, cookies are human. The only difference between us and them is code. All those copies of Amy and Frank became disposable so that the system could determine the compatibility of the real Amy and Frank. Was it the positive change in tone? Or was it us simply wanting two people to get together that suddenly made humans benefiting from the torture of sentient artificial intelligence socially acceptable? Although, that is under the assumption they were the same kind of cookies we've seen throughout the series. Charlie Brooker, the writer of Hang the DJ, views the ending as a happy one. In the book Inside Black Mirror, executive producer of the series, Annabelle Jones, claimed, "Every time I watch that final scene in the pub, my heart swells with happiness and the tears aren't far away. You understand that Amy and Frank know this is special." As I mentioned earlier, Charlie Brooker wanted to make a Spotify for dating. During their first night together, Amy and Frank end their conversation by agreeing it's simpler when things are mapped out. When we get to the real world, the original score of the episode by Alex Summers and Sigur Rós is replaced by the song Panic by the Smiths. The song was written by the band members Morrissey and Johnny Marr. The two of them were inspired to write Panic after listening to BBC DJ Steve Wright play the upbeat song I'm Your Man by Wham immediately after giving a news update on the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Morrissey and Marr claim they first learned of the disaster when listening to Wright's broadcast. They were appalled by Wright playing a cheerful song just after reporting on such a tragic disaster. In Simon Goddard's book, Songs That Saved Your Life, The Art of the Smiths, 1982 through 1987, Goddard wrote, "The root of this panic we soon discover is the state of pop itself, which in Morrissey's words says nothing to me about my life. The solution is nothing less than a violent pop revolution, to burn down the disco and hang the DJ. Panic was made to rebel against the corporate format of daytime radio stations, as well as the DJs who set the playlists that didn't reflect the way people were feeling during that time period. Frank and Amy constantly relied on Coach to tell them what to do. They put their trust in Coach, aka their DJ, to generate their playlist. A playlist that did not reflect the way they were feeling. Frank and Amy rebel against the system by rejecting the music being played for them. They hang the DJ and set their own playlist.